Frank spent 3 weekends building a headboard for his bed out of reclaimed pallet wood. Sanded it smooth, stained it a rich walnut, sealed it, and proudly installed it against his bedroom wall. 2 weeks later, he woke up in the middle of the night with a headache so severe he thought he was having a stroke. It wasn't a stroke. It was the wood. And what he found out afterward is something almost nobody tells beginners before they grab their first free pallet. I'm going to walk you through exactly what Frank got wrong, exactly what he should have checked before he ever touched a saw, and exactly how to make sure it never happens to you, because this isn't a rare mistake. It's one of the most common ones in this entire hobby, and it's almost entirely preventable if you know what to look for. Here's what happened, as Frank told it to me himself. He'd found a stack of pallets behind a hardware store, loaded up 6 of them without a second thought, and got to work that same weekend. They looked fine. Solid boards, no obvious rot, no major cracks. What he didn't know, because nobody had ever told him, was that not every pallet is safe to bring into your home, and the difference isn't something you can tell just by looking at the wood. Every shipping pallet, by international regulation, gets stamped somewhere on its frame with a code that tells you exactly how it was treated before it ever left a warehouse. Most people walk right past that stamp without a second glance, assuming wood is just wood. It isn't. Look for the letters HT. That stands for heat treated, meaning the wood was heated to kill pests and bacteria using nothing but temperature, no chemicals involved. That's the pallet you want. It's safe for any project, indoors or out. Furniture, shelving, anything. Now here's the one that actually put Frank in a hospital waiting room at 2 in the morning. If you see the letters MB instead, that stands for methyl bromide, a chemical fumigant used to treat pallets against pests, particularly common on pallets that traveled internationally. It's effective at killing insects. It's also toxic to breathe, especially once that wood is sanded down into fine dust and brought into an enclosed bedroom, where a person spends 8 hours a night breathing the same air. Frank's headboard was built from at least 1 MB stamped board, and the fine sanding dust from that project had been settling in his bedroom for 2 weeks straight before his body finally reacted to it. The doctor who eventually diagnosed it told him plainly this happens more often than people realize, specifically with reclaimed pallet wood used for indoor furniture, because almost nobody checks the stamp before they start sanding. Most cases aren't as severe as Frank's turned into. Some people just get ongoing headaches, throat irritation, or unexplained fatigue for weeks and never connect it to the beautiful new headboard sitting 6 feet from where they sleep every night. That's the real stakes here, and it's exactly why I'm making this video before you build your next project, not after. Because the fix isn't complicated. It's not expensive. It takes about 10 seconds per pallet. You just have to actually know to look. So here's exactly what to check. In the exact order I check it myself before a single board comes off a pallet. First, find the stamp. It's usually burned or branded into the wood near the center block of the pallet frame, sometimes on the side, occasionally worn or partially obscured on older pallets. Look for HT specifically. If it's there, you're clear. If you see MB, set that pallet down and walk away, no exceptions. No, it's probably fine, especially for anything going indoors. If there's no stamp at all, that usually means it's untreated softwood, which is generally fine for outdoor builds like garden benches or planters, but I'd personally avoid it for anything indoors, especially anything like a headboard or a table where you or your family will be in close, prolonged contact with it. Second, and this is a step even careful people skip, look closely at the surface for staining that doesn't look like normal wear. Dark blotchy stains, an oily sheen, or a chemical smell can indicate the pallet was used to transport something it shouldn't have been anywhere near: pesticides, industrial chemicals, sometimes even food products that spoiled and soaked into the wood grain. If something about a pallet smells wrong or looks wrong beyond ordinary dirt and weathering, trust that instinct. It's not worth the risk to save yourself a trip to find a cleaner pallet. Once you've cleared a pallet on safety, that's when you start actually evaluating it for quality, because a pallet can be perfectly safe and still be a poor choice for the project you have in mind. And that's where a lot of frustration happens later in the build, even for people who did everything right on the safety side. Look for minimal cracking across the boards. A little surface checking, those small hairline cracks that come from natural weathering, is completely normal and honestly adds character to a finished piece. But deep cracks running the length of a board, especially near where it's nailed to the frame, mean that board is likely to split further the moment you try to work with it, whether you're cutting it, sanding it, or driving a new screw into it. Set those aside for scrap or firewood, not furniture. Check for tight joints throughout the pallet. Give it a firm shake or press down on different corners with your hand. A pallet that flexes and creaks excessively wasn't just weathered. It was likely stressed under heavy loads for years, and the internal joints are already loosening. That doesn't necessarily make the individual boards unusable once you take them apart, but it's often a sign of overall lower wood quality, and it's worth being a little more selective about which boards you actually salvage from a pallet like that. Here's a detail that trips up more beginners than almost anything else on this list, and it's one that doesn't show up until you're halfway through assembly and wondering why nothing lines up. Consistent board thickness. Pull a few boards off different parts of the same pallet and actually compare them side by side. Pallets built for shipping don't always use uniform lumber. Sometimes the deck boards are one thickness and the stringers are noticeably different, and sometimes even boards from the same section vary slightly, depending on where the pallet was manufactured. If you build an entire tabletop or a shelf assuming every board is exactly the same thickness, and it isn't, you end up with an uneven surface that no amount of sanding fully corrects. Checking this before you start cutting saves you from discovering it the hard way, mid-build, with glue already drying. And here's a genuine bonus tip, one that took me a while to learn myself. Every so often, you'll come across a pallet made from oak or another hardwood instead of the standard pine or fir most pallets are built from. These are rarer. Most manufacturers use cheap softwood because it's lighter and less expensive to produce at scale, but when you find one, it's worth grabbing every board you can. Hardwood pallets take stain far more evenly, show a richer, tighter grain pattern once finished, and hold up to years of daily use significantly better than softwood. You can usually tell just by the weight. A hardwood pallet feels noticeably heavier for its size than a standard softwood one, even before you've checked a single stamp. Now, once you've actually got a pallet that's past all of that, safe stamp, minimal cracking, tight joints, consistent thickness, here's where I want to be honest with you about something. Knowing how to choose the right wood is genuinely half the battle, but it's only half. The other half is knowing what to actually build with it once you've got it home, and that's exactly where most people, myself included when I was starting out, run into the second wall. This is why I use tedswoodworking for basically every project I take on now. It's a library of over 16,000 tested plans, and here's the specific reason it matters for exactly what we just covered. The plans account for the kind of material differences we just walked through. They tell you which projects work best with standard softwood pallets, which ones are worth saving your rare hardwood finds for, and exactly how to adjust your measurements if the boards you salvaged don't come out perfectly uniform in thickness. That's not something you get from a generic plan pulled off a random blog. It's the kind of detail that comes from someone who's actually built hundreds of these projects and knows where beginners consistently get stuck. Frank, by the way, made a full recovery. Took about a week for the headache and throat irritation to fully clear up once he removed the headboard and aired out the room. He rebuilt it a month later, same design, this time checking every single stamp before a board came off the pallet. Told me afterward it was honestly a little embarrassing how simple the fix turned out to be once he actually knew what to look for. That's really the whole point of this video. Choosing the right pallet isn't complicated. It's not expensive, and it doesn't take special tools or years of experience. It takes about 10 seconds of checking before you commit to hauling wood into your garage. The stamp, the cracks, the joints, the thickness. Do that consistently, every single time, and you'll never end up in the situation Frank found himself in. And you'll end up with furniture that actually holds together the way it's supposed to. If you want plans that already account for everything we just covered, the exact kind of material differences that trip up most beginners, the link is in the description below. Choosing the right wood really is half the project. Most people just never realized it until it cost them something.